It was supposed to be just another night of witty banter and celebrity jabs on Jimmy Kimmel Live, but things took an unexpectedly explosive turn when Ricky Gervais, the notoriously fearless British comedian, unleashed a biting critique of Meghan Markle's now infamous podcast, Archetypes. The sharp-tongued comedian didn't mince words as he ridiculed the Duchess's project, calling it the most self-indulgent audio experience since Gwyneth Paltrow started selling candles. What followed was an audible gasp from the audience, a stunned Jimmy Kimmel trying to hold in laughter, and, according to sources close to Meghan, a behind-the-scenes eruption that left the former royal absolutely seething. This latest jab comes as yet another PR blow to the Duchess of Sussex, who has faced growing scrutiny over her media ventures since stepping back from royal duties in 2020. What particularly set off Gervais, who has long positioned himself as a vocal critic of performative celebrity culture, was the perceived lack of substance and overbearing self-importance that permeated Meghan's podcast. She interviews these women about overcoming stereotypes, Gervais said with a smirk, and somehow ends up talking more about herself than the guest. It's like therapy but for her ego. And he's not wrong. Critics of Archetypes, including several respected media outlets like The Times and The Telegraph, have pointed out the strange irony of Meghan attempting to dismantle labels while seemingly reinforcing her own sense of martyrdom and victimhood. Episodes frequently start with her recounting personal grievances, whether it's being labeled difficult or how the British press treated her, before pivoting to how she overcame it all. It often feels less like a journalistic endeavor and more like a carefully curated image rehab campaign disguised as a podcast. Adding fuel to the fire, Spotify unceremoniously pulled the plug on their multi-million-dollar deal with Meghan and Prince Harry in 2023 after just one season of Archetypes. A senior Spotify executive, Bill Simmons, publicly branded the pair as grifters, sparking headlines across the globe. The podcast failed to reach sustained momentum, and insider reports suggested that Meghan didn't even conduct many of the interviews herself, a revelation that shattered the already crumbling trust in the authenticity of the project. Gervais didn't hold back on this either. Imagine getting paid tens of millions to ghost a podcast and then acting like the world just doesn't get your truth, he joked, drawing loud laughs from the studio audience. It's like the emperor has no podcast. To her detractors, Meghan's angry reaction behind the scenes only adds to a growing perception that she is hypersensitive to criticism and obsessed with controlling her public narrative. According to production insiders who allegedly witnessed her response, she was furious that Gervais was allowed to mock her on national television without pushback. She reportedly called the appearance a disgrace and demanded her team get ahead of it in the press, a move that ironically only drew more attention to Gervais's comments. The public backlash wasn't contained to late-night comedy either. Social media lit up with hashtags like #GervaisNailsIt and #PodcastGate, with users sharing clips of Gervais's monologue and pointing out what many had been thinking for months: that Meghan's media strategy seems more concerned with victimhood optics than meaningful content. Even loyal fans of the Sussexes admitted that the critique, while harsh, wasn't completely off-base. In stark contrast to other high-profile celebrity podcasts like Michelle Obama's deeply personal interviews or Dax Shepard's raw conversations, Archetypes often felt overly produced, lacking spontaneity and vulnerability. Where others created genuine dialogue, Meghan seemed to be delivering speeches complete with dramatic music, scripted transitions, and polished monologues. Gervais cleverly compared it to a TED Talk that wandered into a self-help seminar, hosted by someone allergic to self-awareness. This episode marks yet another moment in the increasingly fractured relationship between Meghan and the broader public. Where once there was sympathy for her experiences within the royal family, there's now a fatigue with what critics call her perpetual grievance tour. And while she continues to position herself as a feminist icon and voice of the marginalized, moments like this suggest that her brand may be cracking under the weight of its own contradictions. As Gervais left the stage to thunderous applause and Kimmel nervously tried to change the subject, one thing became clear: the era of blind reverence for celebrity activism is over. And Meghan Markle, who once held the world's attention as the symbol of a modern royal revolution, may now find herself increasingly alone on a platform that was once built to elevate, but is now beginning to collapse. In the battle of unsparing comedy versus curated perfection, Gervais may have just delivered the knockout punch. And Meghan, by all accounts, didn't find it funny in the battle of unsparing comedy versus curated perfection. Gervais may have just delivered the knockout punch, and Meghan, by all accounts, didn't find it funny. According to Hollywood insiders, Meghan's team immediately went into damage control mode following the viral clip from Jimmy Kimmel Live. They were scrambling, one source claimed. There were calls to PR firms and internal discussions about whether Meghan should release a statement or respond on social media. But the fear was, anything she says might only validate what Gervais said. In the end, silence reigned, though it spoke volumes. What's most telling is the way Gervais's monologue struck a nerve. Not just with Meghan, but with the public. His critique tapped into a growing frustration with celebrity figures who preach authenticity while maintaining rigid control over their image and narrative. For many, Meghan represents that contradiction. Despite the glitzy documentaries, podcasts, and interviews, there's a growing sense that what she offers is more performance than vulnerability. And as Ricky Gervais continues to call out what he sees as the absurdities of fame, Meghan finds herself in increasingly uncomfortable territory. No longer shielded by public sympathy, and facing critics who no longer buy into the carefully filtered lens through which she wants to be seen.